Bienvenidos. Tercer y último día de FICOT 2010, el Foro Internacional de Contenidos Digitales. Una jornada igual de intensa que las dos anteriores para conocer, para escuchar de la mano de los mayores expertos las últimas tendencias.
We have to take a look at the current trends exactly here today on our last day at FICOT 2010. Now we're going to have the following speakers take the floor. Alberto Oliart, who is the president of RTVE, and Alfonso Alonso, who is the representative from Telefónica. And also we'll have Luis Alic. Thank you very much.
Muy buenos días a todos. En primer lugar, expresar mis...
Well, good morning, and I would like to first of all express my great satisfaction of being here today at this event. The first thing, obviously, I want to do is, well, congratulate Sebastián Muriel from FICOT.es. Congratulate him for this event, because this is the big meeting point of all of us who are related to this sector, which of course is growing all the time. My job or my task this morning is a very satisfactory one. I am here to take the floor and open up things for our panel this morning, for Alberto Oliart and Alfonso Alonso, who are going to address you with great wisdom and, of course, content. So what I'm going to do now is, with their permission, just avail of this space that I have to tell you how important this forum is for Telefónica. One of the most important items that we have in the field of digital content in Telefónica at the present time. Well, Telefónica and RTVE have been working together in an alliance with some specific results, I have to say, advancing not only mutual benefits, but also benefits for third parties and, of course, for the market, hoping that they will avail of all of this. Well, on all of these items of terrific importance for all of us. So this alliance and the two parties that are taking part in this alliance have increased this alliance, I have to say, and we are working together to implement connected TV. The work of Spanish television and Telefónica over the last few months, well actually over the last year, has been very intense work, and we have seen the digitalization of the historical archives of RTVE, and this experience working together has meant that we've taken on board the way we can connect up television. And I think this is going to be a real transformation, a real revolution of the relationship between telecommunication operators and the mass media. This alliance, which is an open alliance, and as I say, we can with this contribute to an important development, which of course does involve some risks. We have the two parties acting at the moment, and we may have more come into the fold, and we want to facilitate the new possibilities of telecommunication for the future. To introduce Alberto Oliart today is almost impossible, because of course, it's the person who's being presented doesn't need an introduction, as you know, because you know who Alberto is. He doesn't take part in public events, but he did decide to come here today. Alberto Oliart, as I say, who is chairman of the Spanish television. He's a law, he's a jurist, a very prestigious one. He has been a manager in some companies, he's been a banker, and of course, if I remember correctly, you've been 3 times a minister, Alberto. He's an author, and now he is the president or chairman of Spanish television. He is showing his wisdom, his intelligence in managing RTVE, and the position that he holds is not an easy one at the present time. When I was coming by car here this morning, I was thinking about Alberto's attributes, right? And how I could really sum this up, and I'm a real fan of his for many, many years, since, well, when I was very young, he was on the podium of the VIPs in this field. And as I say, he's dedicated a great part of his life to this field and to many, many other fields, as you have just heard. And as I say, he is the paradigm of versatility. Everything that he has done well. Everything that he has done, he's done with showing great intelligence and with a terrific sense of obligation. And I didn't know if at this short presentation I should highlight his contribution to the banking sector. I'm from the banking sector, I should say, and I know exactly what he did there and the evolution of the system, applying his talent as a state lawyer. And as I say, he is at the end of the day a public server, and he has shown terrific generosity in contributing to the well-being of all of us, sacrificing his time, his efforts, his intelligence. And when we talk about his versatility, his intelligence, his role as a public server, I just have some doubts with regard to which attribute is the most important one. And he answered me. And what I am, above everything else, is a Democrat. And the truth of the matter is, this really touched me, and I want you to be touched by what he said in answer to my question. And the second speaker, of course, today is Alonso. And well, he's my good friend. More than anything else, he's one of my good friends. Alfonso is a man from Telefónica. I'm a man from Telefónica as well, but I've been far less time than he has. When I went into the company, Alfonso was one of the cornerstones of the company, I would say. And for many, many years, where we have shared our efforts and our success stories, well, it's a very pleasant experience for me to introduce you here today. And I wanted to talk about your professional and personal attributes. You have so many and such good ones, but I'm going to close with an observation, just as I did with Alberto Oliart. I just was coming down on the left and I was thinking about technology, because this is his field of action, undoubtedly. Alfonso is able to develop in 1 hour what has to be described in 5 minutes, and he's able to develop in 5 minutes which can be developed in an hour, which of course it's only the very intelligent that can do just this. I would like to express my great satisfaction to be Master of Ceremonies here this morning of this session. I'm delighted to give the floor to you, Alberto, and then Alfonso. We will listen very carefully to everything you have to say, and now I would like to give you the floor. Thank you.
Bueno, yo también felicito.
Well, I would like to congratulate the organizers of this event. I have to say that Luis certainly exaggerated when he was talking about me. I'm an elderly person now. I'm 82 years of age, but I'm very sensitive to the situation, and I'm certainly open to the future. I try and understand what the future is going to be. I'm progressive, and of course I shouldn't be at this stage, but I am. And I know how important it is what FICOD is doing here today. How important it is to, well, have a multiplication of screens, of computers, of video consoles, of mobiles connected up to internet, and of connected television. And this, of course, is something we are working on at the moment. And the chairman of Telefonica and my good self are trying to come to an agreement, as I say, to working together, set this up as soon as possible, and to have it as one of the big medias, the big new medias of the future. We find ourselves in a situation where the citizens had so much TV content as they have today, according to the data that we have on our audiences worldwide. But we're at a very complex moment for televisions, a transcendental moment. The changes, the technological and strategic changes, what we are seeing is fantastic. And we cannot talk about public services without technology and without these screens connected up. The young people continue to watch television, but they're not always doing it in a traditional fashion. In other words, switching on the television, sitting down to watch it, and being absorbed by the small screen. The citizens want to continue seeing our programs, our series, our news bulletins, but they want to see it wherever they can. Right, connected television is what we're going to make available so that they'll be able to do this. This is a specialized forum on internet and on new technology, and of course, they are the ones that have talked more and more than anybody about television. This wasn't the situation a few years ago, but internet is changing. Television is changing. I don't know much about this, I have to say, but I think we'll be more and more astonished in the future by the things that are going to be discovered. And I tell you that the imagination of people is so powerful. Well, a few years ago, things that are happening now, well, we thought they might have happened, but of course it was the real artists or the privileged minds that actually thought that. George Powell, for example, wrote a book, and I hope that many of you have read it, and if not, I recommend that you read it. It was called 1984. This, of course, was George Orwell's book. It's the book which in a dictatorship, after Stalin's dictatorship where he lived, well, there are a few people conspiring, right? It's a sort of superficial conspiration, no, but very profound with regard to ideas, but not exactly with regard to what they were saying then. And we saw the face of the dictator who was talking to them over the air, right? And of course they are arrested and they were not allowed to continue. So of course then we have writers that which went through the Spanish Civil War, and we heard the same from him. But I don't only want to talk about the technical media. These are technical means, but what is important is the actual content, what we are able to offer through them. And what is important is how we are able to assimilate the content that we receive. In other words, the information that we receive. We're talking about information. Information, well, it's something which is very positive. Mankind today have the capacity to be informed like they could never be informed in the past in a global fashion. So look at the different ways of globalization there, the way we are informed in real time in the different ways, and what effects it can have. In a country like the countries of Africa that have such poverty, such terrible diseases, that suffer hunger, that of course which has been motivated by climate change, and they have to change constantly because of these situations. Or how we can see all of this information in our modern world, which is in recession at the moment, or in a country like China. This changes the actual content. Well, the actual effect of the content can change, right, in these different places. And from the beginning, I've had a very clear idea about what public television is all about. Public television and the public media, where today is computer science. We are leaders there. The person who is going to follow me knows far more about these technicalities. Says we are leaders in these new devices, and there are 8 million people visiting us. But this is not enough. The media has to be used with basic goals. Goals which allows us to transmit things. And what can we transmit now in times of recession? Apart from being public television, it's a television of reference, a basic television that can give us some things, cannot give us others, but must take into consideration all the Spanish population. And I see that these media have to be entertaining people, because otherwise people will not endure it, will not be able to concentrate all the time or have in play their feelings. But we mustn't forget to transmit at this point in time and in the future something which is so important, like solidarity. Solidarity for all those who live in our world, full of the problems that we have. If we manage the potential of all of these media in order to fight for what we want, to get over the problems that we have altogether. We talk about the hunger, the poverty in the third world, the world that doesn't develop. We see the situations in South America, people who are fighting, the ignorance that we have to fight against, and the poverty, the illnesses. But we know there are problems here in Spain. We heard that 2 million Spanish children are submitted now to poverty, which of course is going to mark their lives, which can prove to be catastrophic or not. And this is in our hands. If we have to transmit something important, it's just that. Luis Abril said I was a Democrat. I told him that was the most important thing for me. And at my age, it is important to be a Democrat. And what it means is whatever we are, whatever our human condition is, what our beliefs are, what our convictions are, what is worthwhile in a democracy, and what is a fundamental right is the dignity of the human being. That is democracy. There are, well, parliaments, political parties, but of course what is the most important is the dignity of the human being, and we must avail of the technology that we have to make this possible. This is our obligation. We have this obligation as the main reason of our decisions. And we must be faithful to our beliefs. When I talk from my age, well, this is something that I already know. We all make mistakes. We all fail. We've seen that the Spanish team lost yesterday. It was a pure disaster, but now they will rise up again, and that's what we have to know how to do. We have the powerful means to do this. We have to use the media for powerful messages, and that's everything really that I wanted to say. Thank you very much.
Gracias, señor Oliart. Y a continuación vamos a escuchar.
Oliart, thank you very much for that presentation. Now we're going to hear from Alfonso Alonso with regard to the transformation of Telefónica. Thank you very much. Well, good morning to all of you. And thanks for the invitation to come here today. And thanks to my colleague and good friend for his kind words, which I certainly don't deserve, because I come here to represent a team and that they're the ones that need all of the praise that was given by Luis. It is a great honor for me to follow somebody like Alberto Oliart, who I have admired for many, many years. He and his team, and together with Telefónica in the last year and a half, have had the opportunity to develop and sign an agreement which is just a clear example of something that we're going to tell you about, and that we have come here today with certain, ideas and food for thought. We don't want to establish any type of doctrine, because the public that we have here today know far more about these things than many of us. But we want to give you some food for thought. We want to provoke a debate with regard to the evolution or the revolution of something which is taking place. It's a revolution which we are seeing here and now as a consequence of three phenomenons combined, three marvelous phenomenons that have taken place amongst humanity. And they are now coming together, as I say, blending in the last 3 years. In the last 10 years, we have seen the development of Internet in the Western world. The last 15 years, I would say, while we are developing the networks, giving it the necessary support, and in a parallel fashion, we are developing mobile communication. What has taken place over these last few years? Well, technology has let these three phenomenons come together in one point. Now we can have access to Internet with broadband, a very large broadband, a wider and wider broadband through mobility. And this is the real change, which is giving rise to a revolution, and which we are in at an initial stage. And we are seeing now the effects, as I say, the first effects. And it's going to give rise to a panorama of different agents, very clear and at the same time very complex in their relationship. It is quite clear that it's not only the networks that are the protagonists of this change. They play a very important role and a critical role in the development of what we call this ecosystem. The different devices, and of course the content, and not forgetting the applications. The applications have a greater and greater role to play. But the three of them cannot exist on their own. They need the other two. This is the nucleus of this debate and our revolution, evolution, the integration, the interrelationship, the need for them to live together, the interaction between the three fundamental agents of this revolution. And this need, as I say, for interaction, of concurrence, of integration, gives us a competitive, complex, dynamic situation where we see two very important issues in order to be able to survive in this market. And the first of these is scalability. Why do I say that? Because none of the agents, none of the operators, the manufacturers of the devices, the generators of content can make progress if they don't have sufficient scalability. And why is this? Because it's a global market, which is the other fundamental attribute of the development of Internet and communications. In this context, the complexity which the competitive arena has, well, the barriers are broken down, the limitations are broken down for the suppliers or providers of content, for the manufacturers. of the devices and for us, and also because of the regulations in the market. There are going to be great contradictions between detailed rules and regulations for local operators and the non-existence of rules and regulations for the generation of content amongst the internet providers like Google and Yahoo. They are not regulated. Are the manufacturers of devices. So this is generating a certain level of tension, but also important growth within the actual market. The agents, the creators of devices, well, one of the dynamic features that we've seen over the last 2 years, which is not, I would say, surprise, but certainly has had an impact and has generated a new wave of growth, is the appearance of devices that are convergent devices that are able to integrate these 3 concepts of mobility, internet, and broadband. But we have to mention somebody here, the appearance of iPhone from Apple, which has brought about this integration. Before the iPhone from Apple, we can all say humbly that we didn't have such an explosion, as it were, in the demand for connectivity in mobile broadband. Until the iPhone came into its own, we didn't have this vicious circle of internet, broadband, mobility, etc. This has generated the dynamics of evolution of integration within the devices, which we, the operated, see so strong, so important. For us, it is one of the main elements of growth for the future in the utilization of the networks. And of course, this is the convergence between 3, 4, 5 screens. For the future and for the present, what is happening is that any type of device will become, or is becoming, a device to come into the network, a surfer, a browser. All the devices have more common elements. The type of screen that they have, from being a screen with being interactive now, it's tactile, as we say, it's touch. We have this in the PC and the tablets, and now we're going to see it in TVs. We have some in the market. The operating system is beginning to be a common system. And it's just interesting how the operating systems are pushing from the mobile field, Android, for example, system of Apple. They're going towards PCs, tablets, TV. And lastly, it's their functionalities, which of course is internet connectivity. All the different devices are connected to internet. And the last thing that is left is the television. And this is the big revolution. This is something else, because when we connect television to internet, that means we're going to have an operating system in television just like the other devices, and it's going to have the operating system that dominates the market. The television will have Android, it will have OS default, Apple, or any of the big ones that are working in the rest of the devices. The TV, the television set, well, what will be different about it will be its size and its definition, but its functionality is equivalent to the rest of the devices. So we have no differentiating factor there then, right? The person is watching TV, a video, on his television, on his TV, on the tablet, and in his mobile phone or cell phone. So television is not only related to TV and operators and distributors. It's not only going to be connected to the device we have in our sitting room, but it's going to be connected to all the devices that our customers use. Television Connected offers a terrific opportunity to TV distributors and companies like Televisión Española. will be a terrific demand that we will have, not only television at specific time and specific places. Now it's going to be any place, any time, anywhere, and any device. This is what's fabulous about television. In the world of content and applications, we have the dynamics, which is an explosive dynamic. I'll go back to Apple once again. Sorry about that. But the case of Apple is accompanied not only by the fact that we have the touch screen connected to internet, but also the applications, services, which existed for other devices, but they homogenize the way the developers and content providers get closer to their customer in an independent fashion from the screen. And also the customer, as a generator of content, is able to connect up to the network and communicate with others. This means that just like someone can hang a video on YouTube, our television in our sitting rooms will have access to YouTube, and one of the main sources of entertainment will be to connect up to the social networks in our sitting rooms. So these two dynamics, these types in devices, in the applications, the content, how does this affect us? How are the operators going to respond to this tremendous growth of demand in the field of connection stemming from this terrific use from our customers? This is something that we have on an internal level, this slide. I think it's familiar to some of you. It's in English, but it helps me to explain how the ideas that we are managing, how we see the operators, how we as operators see this evolution in the convergence of the customer, that everything connects up through mobility. Well, our networks have to be prepared to attend to our customers in this mobility. Mobility which will be through, as I say, mobile telephony or through the fixed network. But at the end of the day, will be the same for us. The only thing that we have to be concerned about is that where the customer has his device, we are able to provide him with this connectivity. And that means to be able to offer it at home with Wi-Fi on the mobile phone, when he's outside the home, when he's in his car, when in his workplace, when he's moving around, or wherever he goes on holidays. We have to be able to provide him with this connectivity, this coverage, which is universal on one hand. It has access to internet. This is the greatest challenge that we have as operators. This coverage, as I say, means that we have to be able to have the necessary capacity to able to offer video for our customers. So he'll be able to manage images. He'll be able to have access to images on video. This is the second most important challenge. Remember, we come from the era of voice and text and communication, and then data, and now the one we're in now, which is of course based on image, pure image. This we're going to offer with networks that manages mobility, the broadband, and then we have networks that open up to third parties. And this is a very important subject for the operators, because up until now the operators were used to, well, have communication between 2 points, 2 closed points, point to point. Communications of 2 direct customers that communicated with their data and their voice. And now, from some time back, we have to open this up to content that's on servers, that's in the hands of agents that are managing this, like Radio Televisión Española, that manage their content in another world, which is separated from us. The capacity of the network to attend and connect these third parties is another important characteristic in the change of our approach. We have to be able to attend to services in Televisión Española, have the necessary technology so that the content will reach our customers faster. And we are developing at a runaway speed in this field. We have to be able to open up our networks in such a way that everybody can develop applications using the attributes of the network, maximizing location, speed, and we must transmit the capacity of this capacity to transmit information quickly. Another important part of our revolution, as I mentioned, is this cloud that everybody is talking about. I know you know far more about this cloud at the moment, but it's certainly state of the art. It's a very important concept for the future revolution. At the end of the day, to think and to decide that all the different services, all the content are of easy or of access in internet. This is the cloud concept. Internet controlled by enterprises, controlling the content that we're putting up there, or an open internet to everybody in general. These are the three attributes that we are managing now in the evolution of our networks. How's technology faring with regard to what we're doing? There's plenty of it. We've no problem in technology. The engineers of this world try at a far to run at a greater speed than we're able to manage. Technology is going to be able to provide us what we need to give us speed in the fixed networks and the mobile networks. Things are evolving in 3.5G, which would be the actual evolution of UMTS that you have at the moment in the different terminals, and that we're seeing they're going to offer the necessary speed of 80, 40 megas in a natural fashion.
We've got that on the market. We're going to be seeing the implementation of 4G. We're talking about 100 megas in mobile access. I mean, technology is not going to be limiting anything, especially not fixed telephony, because, you know, fiber is really something that facilitates speeds. We're talking about 1 giga per customer, that speed. So that's not the limiting factor. And what's more, all of this we do with a wonderful IP, the Internet Protocol, which integrates everything, which makes everything convergent, which makes this development possible and feasible right there on the cutting edge. But how do we perceive the customer? What does the customer want? Well, there's some data up there which I don't think can actually be read, but we see the evolution of the European market. This is for the upcoming 3 years. This is not only for Spain, this is a combination of countries actually. So what do we see? We see that obviously fixed broadband, traditional broadband is going to continue to grow. I'm talking about demand, but it's going to be mobile broadband that's going to really take off. And this means that the networks are going to be subject to stress, and there you see those multiplication factors, and this very huge demand involves some issues that are very important that we must take into account, the spectrum among them. So accessing internet actually becomes massified by mobility. It's increasingly important, and we need to think about that radio spectrum in order to be able to achieve it. So you have Televisión Española haven't had any problems with spectrum because European governments assigned to us whatever it was that we needed to send out our signal, and basically that's what we also have as mobile telephony companies. So we need to guarantee to the markets the availability of that spectrum. So this is something which is very important. This is something that we need to take into account. We're talking about the importance of spectrum. So we're growing in mobile terms. We're growing, and it's unstoppable growth. We're going to be seeing that rate of growth, and we operators have to think of what it is that we can do in terms of guaranteeing deployment of coverage. What do we perceive? Well, we perceive that for customers, for service developers, for service providers, we see how the quality of the networks is increasingly important. Well, this is we thought we had solved this issue years back, but we haven't. So remember what's happened in England, the BBC. That's a similar case to Televisión Española.
Se ha visto colapsado por la demanda.
Was actually collapsed by the market demand, and this is very important because whatever happens in internet is that people want more, and this affects everyone. It's actually going to be generating some blockage. As to the technologies we use, as to how we evolve, well, in ADSL fixed, we're going to be having increasingly more optic fiber deployed, more and more. ADSL is evolving towards VDSL, and ADSL will be faster, and the mix in the upcoming 3 years is going to change. ADSL is no longer going to be majority, and it's going to be the other technologies that are more absorbent. And in the case of cell phones, 2G is less important, and we begin to see technologies 3 and 4.
La realidad es bastante tozuda y este es un tema importantísimo a efectos de la...
What is it that matters now? Well, what matters now is that the model be sustainable for all. These curves that we see here are not a problem that affects operators specifically and exclusively. No, they also affect the content providers. This is a problem which many industries that are currently affected, that are immersed, if you will, in the internet phenomenon, find themselves again. It's their economic livelihoods and sustainability. There is demand that is growing at an exponential level. We in traffic, others in content, to guarantee access to contents, the press in terms of internet news, now publishing houses. There's no problem with demand. No, we're going to be seeing more and more demand. The problem involves really doing the numbers right. The investments, the costs, what it is that you need to continue to respond to that demand, and the income that the market can generate. This is very, very important because one of the core issues of internet development has been that it was free of charge. And economic models surrounding free of chargeness are either going to be really, really cheap or they're not going to be sustainable, and this is not the case. So this is something which is very important when we think about the future evolution. I'm repeating once and again, it doesn't affect only the operators. No, it's content providers, application suppliers, and so on. I'm sure among us here, there are lots of people who want to live off their work. I mean, they want to have paying jobs. And this is the essential equation that we need to solve. It has to be paying. Internet at this point in time is not doing what it should be doing. It's not performing as we should. So that is the only possible break to this unstoppable growth. Regulations, prices of services will guarantee the sustainability of the model. And if not, frankly, well, I tend to be an optimistic person. I'm very lucky because I live in a world and I work in a world that is innovating, growing, developing, making people's lives easier. I always see the glass half full. But, you know, seeing the model continue to blossom and seeing the model generating wealth at a moment at which really what we need in Spain is, you know, that kind of an initiative. We need to see growth. I hope not to have bored anyone, and I want once again to thank all of you for being with us today. Thank you very much. Thank you. Now we have time for a 5-minute break. Please, nobody leave the room, but we're going to now hear the person in charge of strategy and innovation for IBM, Saul Berman. Just 5 minutes.